drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
I might need to update that intro. What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston, live from New York City. Just left Madison Square Garden, where the Celtics dropped their second game of the season, 105-95. And I'm going to react to this game on this podcast, and I also want to explain how I'm approaching this podcast this season, which, for those of you that have been listening to this pod, I don't think you're going to be overly surprised, but basically, after every game, I go on the Garden Report, which you can find on CLNS Media, and we usually break down the game for about an hour and a half show. Usually, I join the last 45 minutes of that show. And then I write, I do my other post-game obligations, and then I'm going to record this podcast after almost every game. That's the plan for the season. But the trick here, the catch, is that it is going to be one or if not more encouraging takeaways from each of these games. And I don't know how the season is going to go. My prediction for this year was 45 wins entering the season. They're 0-2. I think there have been some good things. There have been some bad things. We'll talk about both of those things in this show. Obviously, game one, they were one shot away from being 1-0 on the season and pulling out the home opener. This game was all about the second quarter, where they were outscored by 28. Just a disastrous second quarter. Just a classic, the ship was kind of sinking, and we'll talk about what kind of went wrong there. But they ultimately outplayed the Knicks in 3 or 4 quarters in this game. And, I think that there was a lot to like, despite the fact that they still lose by 10. They battled hard, and there were some strong, one major silver lining, which I'll spend most of the episode talking about. But that's going to be my format for You Got Boston for this coming season. If this ends up being a tank year where everything is going wrong, we'll focus on the prospects, we'll focus on the draft prospects, we'll focus on the young guys, we'll focus on Tatum's recovery and potential players from the current group that could be impactful for future groups, and little things that I like that we're seeing stylistically that this team is doing that could be helpful down the road. And if this team is great and these 2 games are just a aberration, or they just lost, they started the year with 2 losses, as did the Houston Rockets and plenty of other teams in this league, then we'll focus on encouraging things, as we did in the playoffs last year as well. So if you're looking for negativity, this isn't your show. There are plenty of shows where you can find that. So this is what this show is going to be about through this season. So giving that heads up now. And with that, wanted to chat a little bit about game 2. And I should probably stop saying game 2 because we're not in a playoff series anymore. But first road game of the year, second game of the season after the 76ers loss. And I loved how the Celtics team looked from the gate. They wanted to win this game. Jaylen Brown, I asked him to shoot around, how much does this mean to come back after your season ended on this floor last year? Kier, do you have any extra emotion or motivation just considering the season ended on this floor?
Absolutely. Yeah, tonight should be a fun one. Looking forward to coming out and compete. Always a great atmosphere for basketball in New York, so it should be fun.
This was Jason Tatum's first time in Madison Square Garden since his injury, because he wasn't at Game 6. He was still kind of recovering at the hotel. So he's back in the building. He's been traveling with the team, as everybody knows, through preseason, through regular season. He is just everywhere, film sessions, you name it, he's there. So he's on the bench for this game. Luka Garza, I'll just mention, who was out with a concussion. He was also on the bench, so he traveled with the team. And honestly, the fact that he traveled makes me optimistic that he'll return at some point on this road trip. But they don't mess with head injuries, so if he's, ruled out of this game, it doesn't necessarily mean he's dealing with anything super serious. But he could easily come back Sunday against the Pistons or Monday against the Pelicans. So everybody was in the house, including the 2 guys that were out. And they come out to a strong start. I liked what the starting group did. Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, Neemias Queta, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, those 5 guys start for back-to-back games. And then at around the 6-minute mark, with the Celtics leading, Joe Mazzulla does hockey subs, and he puts in a completely brand new lineup. And with that lineup, Hugo Gonzalez makes his NBA debut alongside Anthony Simons, Baylor Shireman, who didn't play in the previous game, so that was his first NBA minutes, Chris Boucher, and who else am I missing? Xavier Tillman, who actually I thought was good in his minutes. And then Jordan Walsh got a little bit of an opportunity later in the game, only played 2.5 minutes in this one. But brand new 5 come in, hockey subs. I know there was a lot of preseason discussion around whether hockey subs were going to work, whether they were going to do it, because Jordan Walsh said they were going to do it, and then Joe Mazzulla said he's messing with you guys. So we never really knew what exactly to make of that. But classic straight up hockey subs. Reminds me of my rec basketball team where it's 5 in, 5 out. They do that. They closed the first quarter strong. They were up by 8 entering the second quarter, and I was starting to feel really good about this team. And I thought to myself, maybe they're going to pull out a big win here against a team that is most likely going to be a top seed in the Eastern Conference, if not the top seed in the Eastern Conference. And then the second quarter happens. In the second quarter, they get outscored 42-14. Everything went wrong. I mean, when you get outscored by 28 points in a quarter, it's more than one thing. It was 3-pointers, it was turnovers, it was offensive rebounds. The Knicks in general got 21 offensive rebounds in this game, 6 from Josh Hart, who only played for 18 minutes, and 6 for Karl-Anthony Towns, who was imposing his will in this one. Jaylen Brunson had a great game, finished with 30 points, 10 of 20 shooting. This Knicks team is good. Like, this is going to be who they are all season long. They didn't even have Mitchell Robinson today, which would have made the rebounding disparity even more alarming. But even still, the Celtics go down by 20 at the half. You think to yourself, okay, this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, but they start the second half really well. Sam Hauser hits a few threes. Sam Hauser was probably the standout for the Celtics as far as individual performances goes. He was 18 points on 6 of 10 shooting, and that's important because you want to see him, first of all, just get off 10 clean looks. Like, that's important because he's going to hit them. Like, as I've said a billion times on this podcast and on many other shows, Sam Hauser is an elite shooter. He routinely hits his threes. He has never shot below 40% in a single season. 6 of 10 is going to happen pretty often. So if you can get 10 clean looks, that's a good sign for your offense. Alongside Sam Hauser, Jaylen Brown had 25 points on 9 of 18 shooting, 23 points, I should say, but also had 7 turnovers, so a little bit of ball control issues there. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard really struggled from the field, combined for 4 of 18 from 3, and Peyton had 8 points. Derek had 15. Derek came alive in the fourth quarter, but was not his best offensively from what we've seen. And Peyton just hasn't been able to find any rhythm offensively, even through preseason. So a little bit of that is a slump. A little bit of that is probably seeing better coverage. So we'll see how his year shapes up here. Off the bench, we got 4 of 9 shooting, 10 points for Anthony Simons. Xavier Tillman makes all 3 of his shots. He had 7 points in his 14 minutes. But points are hard to come by on this team. They only have 95 points. 105 defensively is not a bad place to be for the Celtics. So this game, I think, if I had to pick one thing, this game was lost on the glass more than anything. And there were obviously some high consequence turnovers in that second quarter, but Celtics outscored the Knicks by 8 in the first quarter, by 3 in the third, and by 7 in the fourth. So it really was the second quarter. And you can't just say, they had one bad quarter, it's all good, because one bad quarter is all it takes to lose an NBA game. And if you have one disastrous quarter every game, you'll be the worst team in the league, right? So I'm not saying that we can just totally absolve and throw out that quarter, but that's really what needs to be scrutinized. And I actually haven't gone back and rewatched this quarter yet, and I'm looking forward to doing that so I can get an even better sense of everything that went wrong there. But this show is going to be focused on the encouraging thing that I took away from this game. And that's the guy that I haven't mentioned yet. And that's 19-year-old Hugo Gonzalez, the Celtics rookie, who I am extremely high on. I'm super excited about Hugo. I think that he is going to be a part of the next great Celtics team. I think that he is somebody who fits in with all different play styles and rosters. And right now, this team is still kind of figure out their identity. They talked a lot about physicality, pace, all of these things, which, to be honest with you, every team has been talking about. So it remains to be seen exactly how the Celtics are going to be able to implement those objectives when they're kind of league-wide objectives to crash the glass and do all those things. But Hugo comes into this game. He plays for 22 minutes in this one, so he didn't even play like a crazy amount of minutes. He was a team best +7 on the night, finished with 6 points on 3 of 6 shooting. He missed his 2 threes, but finished well kind of inside the basket. 4 rebounds, 4 fouls, 2 steals. The box score is not going to tell the story of this guy's game. And it's funny because he was super subdued after the game. He said, we lost. That's what matters. I'm not going to remember this day well because we lost. Bobby asked him about whether has he always been a great defender, and he said, I'm not sure if today's the best day to call me a great defender when Jaylen Brunson had 30 points. Which, if you were watching this game, yes, Jaylen Brunson had 30 points, and some of them were on Hugo, and he made some tough shots, and he's a great, great player. He's an all-NBA player, but Hugo made life really challenging for him. And I, as a personal preference, there's probably nothing I enjoy more in basketball than a guard who just is a pest on defense on the ball. Like, that is just a basketball phenomenon that I love. Some of you might remember from last year, I was a big Jaden Springer fan. Jaden Springer had elements of that as well, but obviously some limitations to his game, which is why he's currently not in the league, most recently waived by the New Orleans Pelicans earlier this week. But Ugo has it. He has the defensive instincts. The way he can move his feet, his physicality, his build for a 19-year-old is pretty impeccable. I asked Joe Mazzulla about it post game of kind of like what he was looking for from Ugo. And the one thing that Joe always emphasizes when it comes to this rookie is that he has already been well coached. Joe doesn't want to take all the credit for him. He wants to acknowledge the fact that yes, he's a rookie. He's new to the NBA, but he has been a pro before. And Ugo mentioned that post game as well, that his first ever game was in Madison Square Garden. A lot of guys would be really intimidated by that. But Ugo said, I've played in big NBA arenas, and I've talked to a lot of people that have played in the NBA, and I've talked to a lot of in EuroLeague and come to the NBA, and they're almost like underwhelmed by NBA arenas because Ugo, who's played in the EuroLeague and played in massive European arenas, like they get rowdier. Their crowd is more unruly. So you go to Madison Square Garden, you go to TD Garden, you go to all these kind of famous NBA arenas, and it actually isn't as overwhelming as it might be for a college basketball player that's never played in that atmosphere. That's just been from anecdotal conversations that I've had with people who have kind of done both leagues. So Ugo is ready for the moment. This guy did not play in the first game. He came to the scores table and did not end up checking in. There was like no stop and play for like 2 minutes. And then finally Joe pulled him back with like 40 seconds to play. So he didn't play in this game. Comes here, makes his debut in Madison Square Garden. And it's been a while since we've seen a rookie just off the top, off the rip, just make an impact for this team. Jordan Walsh has had some moments. Baylor Shireman's had some moments. J.D. Davison's had some moments. But none of those guys debuted the way that Hugo Gonzalez just debuted, where it was just like he's ready, he belongs right now. He gave them a burst of energy that I would say nobody else on the team gave in this game. And Jaylen Brown kind of said it post game that it can't just be the rook; it has to be everybody. But he made it clear he was big. He was critical for this team. They didn't come back and win, but had they come back and won, it would have been all about Ugo and kind of what he did to bring them back on the defensive end. And I'll give a shout out to Chris Boucher, who I think had out moments as well where he was playmaking on the defensive end. But Ugo was really the star of the show. And as I mentioned, if you just look at the box score, nothing that he did is going to jump out at you like, wow, he had an incredible debut. But this is a late first round pick. Half the time those are complete misses. And this guy, a year ago, before his Real Madrid season, a lot of people saw him as a lottery pick based off of his just athletic abilities, his build, the way he's, his kind of his defensive instincts, his playmaking instincts. Like teams were, scouts were high on him. And I've talked to scouts at Summer League who were like, you understand this guy is like, he slipped through this, through the first round. Like we expected him to be drafted a lot higher, and he wasn't. And the Celtics select him, and I honestly was pretty shocked by the selection because I thought they may as well go get a big guy. There was guys like Ryan Kalkbrenner on the board. And they pick Ugo, and I think they were thrilled with the pick. And a lot of the American media and people who don't, I'll be the first to admit, I don't watch a lot of European basketball. I had his name on my radar. I'd been told by a couple of people to keep my, my eye out for him, to know the name, know the basics. But he was relatively new to me, and I've been so impressed by everything that he's done, both in preseason, where he became kind of an important part of the Celtics rotation, and then in his first ever regular season game. So you want to see the win. Wins are more fun. It's more fun to see flashes of potential in a victory. I think this game was very winnable. Obviously, the Knicks are the better team on paper than the Celtics team. This is the team that, made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They are mostly healthy. They had, Karl Anthony Towns. They had Josh Hart in this game. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Miles McBride, Jalen Brunson. Like, this is a good team. They made some good offseason acquisitions. I like what Jordan Clarkson brings from a shot-making standpoint. Like, they're at home. They're ready to go. They're obviously they just have on paper, this is the team that you would expect to win. And outside of that second quarter, I thought the Celtics really battled. But it almost doesn't even matter at this point, because what matters more, if we're looking big picture, and this is not really my approach, but I know for a lot of fans, you're thinking, what does this year mean? What should I be watching for night in and night out? I want to see them win games. I would love to see a sleeper playoff run. They make the fifth seed, sixth seed, they upset somebody. Like, that would be a blast to watch. But regardless of that, we know that this team is building for the future. We know that they're looking for potential prospects, and they're looking for guys that could potentially be impactful down the road when Tatum comes back next year. Who's a big that can maybe play alongside Tatum, Brown, White, Pritchard? Is it Keita? Is it Luka Garza? Do they have something in Amari Williams, who only played 40 seconds in this game but did make his NBA debut? Like, those are going to be the kinds of questions that guide my coverage and our conversations this season. And so from this game, strong gut feeling on Ugo showing he's ready to make his mark on this league. And I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2-player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Play PrizePicks to get action on football in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks won't count it as a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So, I mentioned Ugo. He's my number one takeaway from this game. Sam Hauser said this is what he's been doing. This is what he's been doing at training camp, preseason. Obviously we've only seen it here a little bit. But he said he watched Summer League and he saw flashes about it in Summer League as well. So everybody's seeing it. I think Joe really likes Ugo. Like, just from watching him, he's always coaching him up. Obviously, he's the youngest guy in the roster, and this is the biggest age disparity that Joe's ever had with the player, because Ugo's, the only 19-year-old. I mean, Jordan Walsh was 19 as well, but technically Joe was 2 years younger then. But you can tell that he just appreciates his tenacity and his fight. And once he put him out there and you realize how he was impacting the game, he just left him out there. So I really have to say I was wrong about one thing. I thought after Summer League, this guy is going to spend his entire rookie season in Maine. And I don't think he's going to be in Maine much at all, to be honest, because I don't think that what he did tonight was a fluke. I don't think he just got hot and hit a bunch of shots or something where it's like, okay, that's probably not going to be the case all season long. I think he's only going to get better. What we saw him do as far as the deflections, the ball pressure, and then also he had some nice plays on offense as well. It wasn't like he was just guarding. But that, I think right now, he's already ahead of a bunch of other guys in the rotation. And things change all the time. Guys' confidence change, rhythm, role, all those things. So just because right now he's ahead of other players doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. But certainly I think that there is a lot to like about this kid. And as I'm thinking about, okay, who do they bring back next year? He's on a rookie deal. They have him under contract for the next few years. And it's been a while since we've seen a young player really impact this team. And one of the things that I think we noticed that last year is that the Celtics team was slower and older than a lot of the opponents that they faced. And Ugo brings them that edge where he's younger. He's nowhere near his prime, but he has this level of energy, this pep in his step that they've been missing. And so he has the size. Like, when you put him on a Jaylen Brunson, he has a few good inches on him too, which is helpful. And he can move really, really well, which anybody that watched this game saw that. So Sam Hauser, Jaylen Brown both gave him his flowers. He was stone cold talking to us in the locker room. He didn't want to get an ounce of credit. He didn't seem like he had any sense of gratitude for the moment. Like, he was like, we lost the game. And sometimes it's always hard to tell if it's a little bit of an act with players, because obviously, like, guys are trained and they know to say the right thing, and he's not going to be there grinning at, after they just lost the game. But with him, it's always felt authentic from the jump. So I think the Celtics got themselves a good one, and I don't want to overreact after one game, but if I'm going to find one encouraging takeaway from this game, it is going to be the fact that Ugo established himself as somebody who could really impact this team and impact winning moving forward. So this was the first of a 3-game road trip. The Celtics now go to Detroit, where they'll face the Pistons and Cade Cunningham. Maybe this is somebody you throw on Cade. And then they head to New Orleans on the second day of a back-to-back on Monday. So they don't want to start the season 0-4. They would love to come out and win this game 3 against the Pistons. I think Ugo is going to be a big part of the rotation. He played 22 minutes in this game. I could see him playing similar, if not more minutes in the next one. Only guy that didn't really play in this one that I expected to is Josh Minot. Totally not in the rotation in this game. We'll ask Joe about that ahead of Sunday's game, because I am kind of curious about if there was anything that went into that decision, although Joe never really reveals those kinds of things. But that was one thing that I took away. But overall, I think an encouraging game on a lot of fronts. You saw them start to piece together good stretches of basketball. And one thing that Joe said post-game was that in game 1, he thought that they had 12 minutes where they were really doing what they were supposed to and kind of executing as they intend to. And then in game 2, they had about 24 minutes of that. So the problem is that the minutes where they were not doing those things were pretty disastrous. Like you're hardly ever gonna win a game where you're outscored by 28 points in one quarter. But for those of you looking for a bright side in this game, that's Ugo, who just looks like he could be the next great Celtic. Maybe an overreaction. Maybe I'll come back to this after he spends 3 months in Maine and realize that we jumped the gun, but I don't think so. I have a feeling that this guy, he just has the right instincts. He just knows where to be. He knows how to play. It was obvious from the first time we saw him play. And I think he's looked better and better as time's progressed. And even the first preseason game, I thought to myself, okay, he looked good at Summer League, but these last few months of him learning the system, the terminology, getting more acclimated, it seems like they made a big difference. So that's it for now. We'll have more coverage. I'll do another one of these shows after the Detroit game, another one of these shows after the Pelicans game. It is going to highlight one positive thing. So if you are a Celtics fan who is frustrated that we're not watching the same championship contender that we've watched in previous years, frustrated by the losing, we'll see how much losing there is. But you want to have some things to hold on to that are more positive. You'll find them right here. You can also find the rest of our coverage on CLNS Media, You Got Boston Podcast. I have a YouTube channel called WNBA Today on CLNS. I have reporting literally every day, all throughout the offseason. Anytime there's breaking news, we'll be on there. I did an episode today reacting to the hiring of Sonia Rahman by the Seattle Storm, and I actually spoke to Xavier Tillman for that episode because that's the beauty of covering both leagues, is that Xavier Tillman played for her in Memphis a couple years back. So check out WNBA Today on CLNS. Check out all of our press conferences. We talked to Jaylen Brown twice today, one about sports betting, one about the game. We talked to who else did we talk to? In the morning, we talked to Anthony Simons. He talked about his old coach, Chauncey Billups, getting fired, or not fired, I should say, arrested, and maybe fired as well. We'll see. Lots of coverage over there. It is 2 a.m. I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you, as always, for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, leave your thoughts on this game. If there's anything that you stood out as positive to you, or let us know how concerned you are in the comments below.